Hey, this is Matt once again. Welcome back to the videos. The paid request. It's time for Greer to be. Thank you so much for that. For those interested in requesting any type of videos, whether it be a topic, a review, a commentary, a re-review, whatever the case may be, video game playthrough, commentary, whatever, feel free to send it. PayPal is usually the best bet, or join my Patreon. Both links are down below in the info box. If you do send PayPal, it's best to use the family and friends option, just makes things easier. But this is the big steal from 1949. Now, at times it is fascinating to look back on some of these older films of that era, just because, because of that era, there's just a number of things that won't be in it compared to today. With the way it looks, with the what we take for granted, for good or bad that we see in every other movie or every single movie, and a lot of that's going to be gone in this because of the technology, because of the moral stature of the ratings board, where they were much more stricter in what you were allowed to show, and how you had to really work harder, maybe in terms of dialogue or in terms of you couldn't have like big special effects to hide the possible faults of a particular movie or script. Now, not a whole lot of the political agenda of the woke crowd as it is today. It's just a much different ball game. Now, the big steal was directed by Don Siegel, who would go on to direct the first Dirty Harry film, among many other movies, and starred Robert Mitchum, who at this time was one of Hollywood's bad boys. In fact, at the time, I guess he was arrested for smoking marijuana, which was a huge no-no back in the day. And because of certain things, he was arrested, but he was able to cut some kind of deal. In fact, it seemed like nobody else was going to use him anymore, movie-wise, because, oh my god, how could you? But Howard Hughes, the big millionaire, I forget how rich he was. He was running the company RKO Pictures, and he's like, you know what? This bad boy persona would actually be a benefit, be part of the publicity. So he got hired, thanks to Howard Hughes, and thrust to the front and center of this. And Robert Mitchum's a good actor. He was in the original Cape Fear. He had an appearance in the remake. He was in Scrooged. I think he was Bill Murray's boss in that. Been a lot of stuff. Then old school accomplished actor. Then, because Robert Mitchum was hired and because people were still shocked by his arrest, a lot of women didn't want to do it. In fact, a lot of agents said, no, don't do this film. It's going to be controversial. That's how big of a deal it was back in the day. That's what I'm talking about, how things have changed. If an actor today, oh, he smoked pot, it's like, oh, is it Kevin Smith? Is it Seth Rogen? Be just typical. But, been many decades. Times have changed. So the only person that he did was Jane Greer, who had worked with Robert Mitchum in another film. I forget the title of it. But I'm not sure how many people knew she was pregnant at the time. So because of having to shoot scenes, some of the stuff of the movie was shot during Robert Mitchum's arrest, so he wasn't on set the whole time. For Jane Greer's pregnancy, they had to rush it. That's why at the end of the day, the movie's only an hour and 11 minutes. Like, it's a very, very short, brisk. Can you imagine that? A movie today being 71 minutes long? Now it was like 2.5 hours long. And overall, I liked it. It's people say it's film noir, but when you think of that, you think much more darker, more atmospheric, dreary. It's not the case. It's definitely more lighthearted. And I wouldn't call it comedy either, but it's kind of a chase picture with some humor and, again, more lighthearted than other film noir movies. I thought the two actors did a good job. It went at a brisk pace. I liked some of the dialogue interactions. I thought the two leads had some fun banter with each other. I mean, It's not going to be anything memorable in terms of action sequences. There's not a whole lot of films at that time that you would really have that showcased. But yeah, I guess it depends just how intrigued you are with older films of that type, as well as how you enjoy the actors and so forth. If you don't get into the two leads and their banter, then I don't know how much you get out of this movie. It is in black and white. The setup is Robert Mitchum works with the army. I forget if he's a lieutenant or a colonel. I forget which, but he was in the army. And we come to find out throughout the film that someone had stolen $300,000 from the payroll. He was accused of it. He's trying to get it back. He's trying to appease his captain, a guy named Captain Blake, which one of the early scenes is Blake trying to stop him, but then they get in a scuffle and Robert Mitchum has to knock him the hell out. Take his stuff, his ID and so forth, and try to find this guy who has his bag of money. Meanwhile, you have this girl played by Jane Greer, who is with the guy who took the money, but she doesn't know at that moment that he has all this money. She's seeing this guy because, hey, I loaned you like $2,000. I need to pay back. He stiffs her. Robert Mitchum and her, they meet each other. She doesn't quite know who he is or if she should trust him. Ultimately, they start working together and they go on the chase to chase this guy. And the structure of the film is you get like a car chase and they stop and they try to see where they're at. They try to get where this guy's going. At one point, they stop at this like motel. It's a movie that doesn't stay too long in one location. Keeps moving forward. It takes place in Mexico. So you have a decent bit of business where Robert Mitchum has somewhat of a language barrier. There's some Spanish that he understands, some he doesn't. But Jane Greer understands more of it. And yet again, this whole thing where I keep repeating this because for so many times throughout the past couple years, we've been inundated with people going, oh, well, finally getting strong women. I'm like, there's always been if you knew how to look. Case in point, this film had another strong female, John Greer. Or I should say Jane Greer, John's sister. Jane Greer. See? Didn't think of her as a girl, I thought of her as a character. So I just picked the first name. Jane is her name. Her name's John Connor. But she's someone that doesn't get freaked out, doesn't get scared, doesn't become a damsel. She's able to hold her own. And especially with the banter and the dialogue with Robert Mitchum. I would say that's where, other than the pacing, that's where the stronger points of the film come about. They're back and forth. Especially the way they handle dialogue at that time, fairly different than they would nowadays. Are you always this chivalrous? Well, we'll get that around another time. It's a way of saying we'll say that later, but it's a different way to word it to fit their personas. Are you praising them or are you taking me apart? I'm doing both. Or at one point he keeps calling her Chitita since they're in Mexico, and she goes, listen, you don't call girls Chitita when you don't know who they are. And he pauses for a second, and Robert Mitchum goes, well, where I learned Spanish you do. There's a bit where someone has a gun and Mitchum's talking to the girl going, I don't like to turn around, especially when there's a guy behind me with a gun. Remember that? Or there's a bit of a shootout near the third act where they're going back and forth. Our two are hiding on this rock and the bad guys are down below. And it's getting darker soon, and Mitchum says something to the effect of, I hate the idea of spending the night with an empty revolver. And she goes, well, there's always me. And then he looks and goes, tonight you gotta pick. Like, of all nights to hit on me, tonight's the night to do it. So again, like Robert Mitchum fit well in that tough guy role. Didn't feel fake. Didn't feel phony. Didn't feel like it was. It was natural. And then Jane Greer held her own. Having it take place in Mexico at least gave it a little bit of a different vibe. Again, yeah, a little bit of that language barrier, which helped out at times. At one point, they're trying to chase this guy down while they're being chased by the other guy, Captain Blake. And there's this construction crew. And Robert Mitch is trying to explain to them or trying to come up with something, and they want nothing of it. But then she comes up with the story of, oh, well, this is my new love, and Dad wants me to be betrothed to another one, but I don't like him. And appeases the guy's heart, so he gets the crew to help, and they all get them across the way, and they stop the other guy. Like I said, there's a couple chases, but chases as well as you would have in the 1940s. Like I said, it's not going to be the way of today, like Fast and Furious or those type of films. Just that's not how films were made back then. The There's a couple fisticuffs fairly briefly. There's one briefly near the beginning of the film. There's a bit that not really a fisticuff, but they stop at this gas station and they think a suitcase is here with the money, and they're kind of not fighting, but kind of throwing off these two guys. But they realize this has been faked and it just has a bunch of random paper in it. And throughout it, they start to trust each other. They start to believe in each other. And it was one of those films that I'm watching. I'm like, okay, yeah, not really a whole lot that I disliked about the film. The ending, like I say, just having to keep in mind that things were different back then. Nowadays, it'd be some big explosive action sequences type of thing. It's not the case here, of course. It probably you would say ends as normal as most movies back in that day, at that time. And maybe if you think this is going to be a film noir with like that atmosphere, you know, shadows, lighting, mood, you may be disappointed because that's not the case with this. Like I said, it's definitely more just lighthearted would be the best way to put it. A lot of it's in the daytime, especially being in Mexico. But again, overall, I thought it was a pretty entertaining enough package. Spoiler alert, the way the movie ends is they get to where they need to go. They find the guy who's trying to get the money and get clean money from it while taking a cut of it. You get this dirty money, because people will trace it. I get this clean money. Captain Blake arrives. You realize Captain Blake is in on the whole shenanigans. He's a turncoat. The guy they've been chasing all along, he's like, fine, you do whatever with Robert Mitchum, but I'm going to take the girl. They're like, no, you can't. He's like, fine. He leaves, then he gets shot in the back. Robert Mitchum talks and goes, well, I mean, hey, fella, he shot that guy in the back. Who knows what will happen here? And lo and behold, you get a bit of fisticuff between Robert Mitchum and the Captain Blake character. Did nothing too extravagant, nothing too light. Even the fisticuffs, if it lasted a minute, I'd be shocked. So that's what I mean. It just, I can't. It'd be unfair to say I'm disappointed because that's usually how things were back in the day. I wouldn't say it ended too neatly, but maybe just some other spark. I don't quite know how to put my finger on it that I kind of wish would have seen in the finale. Maybe just like the twists and turns didn't seem that surprising. As well, oh, I figure. Oh yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Not, oh my god, I didn't see that coming. But like I said, one thing you could count on in these movies back in the day, for the most part, they don't end on a happy note. There's not a whole lot of these movies back in the day that have a depressing ending. Not saying none. I'm just there's not a whole lot. So, which works for me of my taste in movies. And then more likely, this type of film, you don't have the couple kiss, which they do, and things work out at the end. So overall, like I say, if you like the actor Robert Mitchum, if you're into films of this era, and you want to see a movie that, again, it's a short film, goes at a pretty fast pace, has two leads that are held their own, work well together, and again, they work together for at least one more other movie. It's definitely worth a look for those into this stuff. And to see, Don Siegel. I mean, directing wise, I wouldn't say there was anything extravagant in terms of camera movement or crazy point of view shots. Nothing of that. I guess the only thing I could say with the direction is that at least he kept the picture going where it didn't feel boring. At least there was that. So, but with that said, thanks for watching. Take care, and we'll see you guys later. Bye bye.